left the front lines. I did this because I believe, and I have always believed, that leadership must be firmly rooted in a conversation that you never stop having with your people. A true leader is one who amplifies what the people are saying. To be a leader is to firmly embody the will of the people. That is the only way you can earn the right to represent and lead the people. Home is always the best place where peace begins. It is the foundation of great nations and the building block that begets us, our future, and defines it. It is where elders and kinsmen meet and make decisions. As Chinua Achebe puts it in his book, Things Fall Apart, and I quote, "A man who calls his kinsmen to a feast does not do so to save them from starving. They all have food in their own homes. When we gather together in the moonlit village ground, it is not because of the moon. Every man can see it in his own compound. We come together because it is good for kinsmen to do so." I retreated to this small village, not because there was no any other place I could have gone and listened. I did this because the prevailing state of our nation is very dire, and this has continuously bothered me, just like it has bothered 55 million Kenyans. Kenya was and is falling apart. I retreated to listen to Kenyans who, for far too long, have remained unheard. When we began, we never knew it would have been this phenomena as it has been. We took 45 days, but it is stretched to 55 days to allow us to listen more and allow Kenyans from all walks of life the opportunity to be heard. My countrymen, first and foremost, I thank God for His grace and guiding this task to a joyful finish. I also appreciate my family, my wife, Reverend Dorcas, and my sons, Kevin and Keith, for their support and unwavering love. I also thank my neighbors, my advisors, and my personal staff for their support and sacrifice throughout these days. I've been here in the village, and I want to thank all leaders, both elected leaders and aspirants for our party, and those in the United Alternative Government for their visits, advice, moral support, and encouragement over the last 55 days. I deeply appreciate the thousands of Kenyans who came here for rigorous conversations and debates, Kenyans who called in and whom we held countless virtual meetings late into the night. I assure you that your views and opinions have been heard, and I hold them dear to my heart. Fellow countrymen, since independence, Kenya has stood strong. The people of Kenya are resilient. We are known world over for whom we are: God-fearing, strong-willed, hospitable, law-abiding, industrious, hard-working, patriotic, resolute, affirmative, honest, and peaceful. Kenyans hold values as spelled out in our Constitution. Our new Constitution brought forth great changes to our development agenda, well-being, and our democracy. It is a great foundation of our nation and a strong pillar of who we are and the future we look forward to. My countrymen, the 55 days have been significant, painted with debates, meetings, new ideas, new freshness of the people, happiness, and rigorous consultations. Evenings were great with my family, a few friends and neighbors. Sometimes the days were painful when I would hear what Kenyans have gone through in the last 4 years. Other days we could sing and pray. Other days I would just sit alone and reflect too much into the past, present, and the future. I also took time in late night hours to read widely and make random calls to Kenyans across the country and abroad. My countrymen, the last time I made this journey to Wamunyoro for consultations, I took the advice given by the people. They instructed me to form a vehicle and a listening tool, a political party that listens to them. They further instructed me to look for allies from across the country. Out of that conversation then came the democracy of the Citizens Party and the many allies I now have, my cousins, my in-laws, my brothers and my sisters. We are now a family, the United Alternative Government of Kenya. It is for this reason that in the last 16 months, the DCP party has since become a permanent fixture in the national conversation and the journey to liberate our republic. I can confirm today that the future is indeed green. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know that in 351 days, on the 10th of August 2027, less than a year from today, we shall go to the general election to elect a listening president and caring leaders. What we have now, a majority are boisterous, callous, dictatorial, and they have itchy fingers. Kenyans who visited me told me that the final stretch of the race is upon us, and once again, as a leader, I needed people to guide me. I needed to hear their expectations, what they wanted the United Alternative Government to become, what they wanted to see from us, and when we finally remove this government, what the next government must do. Delegations of clergy, political leaders, elders, aspirants, professionals, youth, women, retired civil servants, serving civil servants, members of the civil society, grassroots and opinion leaders from every corner of our country came to visit me and discuss a wide range of national issues. Allow me to begin with the pain points and the frustrations that the people of Kenya reported to me. These are tough issues facing our people. On the education sector in our country, the people told me that they are completely crushed and the gains made over the years have been eroded in a record 3 years. Kenyans told me they need the next administration to bring back better free primary education and secondary education. They want free TVET education and a university financing model that works and is responsive to our people. On agriculture, Kenyans are worried whether agriculture is still the backbone of our economy. They are worried about the rising cost of food and farm inputs, failed agricultural value chains, state-sponsored destruction of our cash crops like tea, coffee, pyrethrum, sugarcane, cotton, among others. Kenyans want the agriculture back. Our cooperative movement in the country have mobilized over 1.2 trillion Kenya shillings in deposits. That is their money, their savings. They do not want this regime to touch even a coin. They do not want their assets to be sold to a select cabal of political businessmen, but to members of the cooperative movement that represent the true face of hard-working, honest Kenyans. On healthcare, Kenyans from across the country confirmed that our nation's healthcare system is broken. Kenyans want drugs in hospitals. Kenyans told me that they need the next administration to sweep clean the healthcare sector in our country. Access to healthcare is more than just the SHA registration. We must align and implement 6 building blocks of having effective service delivery, a motivated health workforce at county and national level, health information systems that are priced fairly, access to essential medicines and technology, robust health financing models, and most importantly, servant leadership and good governance. The security of our nation remains a great concern for Kenyans. The people told me they cannot understand how a police vehicle can be used to ferry goons. They have never seen in history where criminals operate hand in hand with the police. Kenyans want the goon culture in their country swept out once and for all. On abductions, extrajudicial killings, Kenyans told me that they know the state is funding goons and death squads to terrorize their own citizens. Kenyans told me that none of this should be allowed to pass without consequence. Someone must pay, not just for the crimes done today, but for posterity. We need to do it so that every government that comes after this one understand in its bones that to walk this violent path is to invite a personal reckoning. Just to be clear, when Kenyans said consequences, they didn't just mean for the foot soldiers who pulled the trigger or drove the vehicles. They mean the ones who sat in comfortable offices, coordinated and signed off and declared war on their own people, and they must start trial. They must be prosecuted. They must be convicted. They must serve as an example to all. The people of Kenya are crying for justice. This is the bare minimum for the United Alternative Government once we get into power on 10th August 2027. Kenyans told me that this government, which came to power on the claim that it was God-fearing, has allowed churches to become a target of violence. Goons, rogue police officers, and death squads launch attacks on places of worship with impunity. Kenyans saw this violence in churches in Mweki, Kariobangi, Gatodo South, and most recently, ACK Cathedral in Nairobi and Kisumu, and of course, the ACK Wetima Church in Othaya. Kenyans want the church to be off violence from the state. On the economy, various professional bodies brought in their views on the state of our economy. Their views reflect what every of the 55 million Kenyans feel deep in their pockets. The argument on paying bills as a ruthless mallet on our businesses. Further, the raiding of the payslip has greatly reduced people's earnings, household incomes, and affected purchasing power. Workers want back their valuable payslip. The people cried about the tax regime. Traders told me that they are experiencing the murkiest tax regime in Kenya's history. They have been taxed into poverty. They requested for a predictable tax framework. They asked for a conducive business environment that spurs investment and trade. The people told me that at independence, we had a great nation. They could see the future for their children and great-grandchildren. Kenyans have told me to revisit the sessional paper number 10 of 1965 and the Kenya Vision 2030. This is not just about revisiting, but use this as a blueprint to give Kenya a vision that transcends political rhetoric. Kenyans feel that if the values of sessional paper number 10 of 1965 on African socialism was implemented to the letter based on its key themes of African socialism, democratic governance, economic development, resource mobilization, and Africanization, nationalization, social services, and taxation and savings, Kenya would have attained a developed country status in the early 2010. To quote one of the youths who called on me this afternoon, we need to fix the software of this country, and that is where we must begin afresh. Further, Kenyans made another reference to the Kenya Vision 2030. They had pain that the gains made in this Vision 2030 on social, economic, and political pillars are going down the drain. Kenyans have told me that the foundations of the Kenya Vision 2030 on economic growth, social transformation, and political reforms to create a modern, industrialized, democratic, and an inclusive nation must be revisited. With only about 3 years to the year 2030, Kenyans are disappointed and are staring into a bleak future. Professionals express their displeasure that if this vision were implemented fully and targets achieved by the year 2030, our nation would have realized its demographic potential in the early 2040s, and this is where our republic would have transitioned to a mature high-income economy and a high-productivity nation. On the rule of law and fidelity to our Constitution, The country is pained by extrajudicial killings, abductions, and forced disappearances of people. Our young people simply want a system that works for all. The 2024 Gen Z protests and the 7th July 2024 Sabasaba protest remains a painful history in the minds of Kenyans. The people of Kenya who called on me want a public inquest on this matter, and all those involved in the killing of our young people to face the rule of law. Kenyans want to know how many young people we lost, and they want this day to be marked in the calendar of our country. On devolution, many Kenyans, especially Kenyans from the northern Kenya, cannot see or feel the impact of devolution in their counties to the extent they ought to. Kenyans want value for the equitable share their counties have received since 2013. Kenyans want accountability. On women and gender, Kenyans continue to demand that the two-thirds gender rule must be implemented. To Kenyans, gender is more than participation of women, but practical inclusion in development of our nation. Women should be included in leadership to fuel the numbers, but not just to fuel the numbers, but to strategically participate in nationhood and nation building. Our youth have told me that they need fair and decent jobs, fair pay for equal work done. The youth have told me that they have been subjected to a slow-growing economy, unemployment, underemployment, poor working environment, exploitation, among others. They are overworked, underpaid, and overtaxed. On environmental conservation, Kenyans told me that we risk losing our next generation due to destruction and decimation of the environment. We must live the ideals of conserving our environment and preserve our common home. On religion, the religious leaders expressed great anguish on the attack and the desecration of the altar. They told me that the church and the state must coexist. I agree with them. I gave my unwavering commitment that the Church of Christ, under my leadership, will remain respected and accorded its rightful position in the country. While at it, the small-scale traders came to see me. The proposed KRA import duty directive affecting clearance of consolidated cargo entering Kenya is not acceptable. The traders have told me that increasing duty from 2.5 million Kenya shillings to 3.5 million Kenya shillings per container will be painful, not only to the importer, but also painful on the final consumer. Kenyans are saying this must be stopped on the tracks. Kenyans have informed me that the Kenya Information and Communications Amendment Bill 2025, currently before the National Assembly, having undergone its first reading in July 2026, is punitive. The bill, Kenyans have told me, breaches the right to privacy under Article 31 of the Constitution of Kenya and the Data Protection Act, among others. Kenyans are demanding a robust public consultation before passage, as well as robust data protection, transparency, and oversight mechanisms. The public service reported that they live under perpetual fear of the state and state mandarins. Apart from demoralization, the service is no longer attractive to work for. Kenyans have been instructed that the next administration must bring back the pride of the public service, as well as restoring the dignity of the payslip. On foreign affairs, the people of Kenya are simply holding their breath. They are wondering how Kenyan sons would find themselves in a war zone in Russia and Ukraine. They do not understand how the government of Kenya would host a parallel government of Sudan run by internationally sanctioned criminals. Kenyans told me that they want a paradigm shift from political diplomacy to economic diplomacy that serves the interests of 55 million Kenyans and not one person. On sports, creative, and digital economy, the players in this sector inform me that they are exploited. There is no fair pay compared to their counterparts in developed economies. They feel completely left out. They charge me with the responsibility to craft a manifesto that places their dignity above everything else. On social security, this requires urgent reforms and an assurance that we can do better as a country. My commitment is an inclusive social welfare for every Kenyan, where no one will be left behind and their hard-earned savings are secure and invested prudently in nation-building projects. On energy and the generational infrastructure, Kenyans want an inclusive development program that is free from political patronage. They do not understand why the government of the day is involved in doing what the private sector should be doing. On illicit brews and drugs, Kenyans in one voice told me that we are back to the menace in a big way. The progress we had made when I served as deputy president has been eroded. Our children, our young people are dying. There are funerals everywhere. I have clear instructions from Kenyans that this menace must be a top priority by the next government. We must protect Kenyan population from extinction. On the sale of public assets, Kenyans have told me that this is wrong. What is more annoying is the impunity and the manner in which it's being done. The people of Kenya have clear instructions that strategic public assets that have been sold must be brought back to the people of Kenya when we form the next government. Kenyans have asked me to develop a policy paper on all sectors and present a blueprint to them for validation. This will be done once I'm back from the United States of America, where I'm traveling later in the week. I'll present my blueprint based on what the people of Kenya want. Overall, the people told me that the covenant with the executive was broken and the promises made therein remain unfulfilled to date. Dear Kenyans and my countrymen, I have heard the people from the South Rift. They were abandoned by their leaders immediately after the elections, a cycle that has always recurred. The promises of development that they were given have never been delivered. Their community land is being grabbed in broad daylight by people who fear no consequence because of their connection to State House. We discussed this and many other issues in that region. From the Nairobi City County, leaders, aspirants, professionals, and businessmen all agreed that our capital city is in ruins. The streets have become rivers because no work has been done on drainage. Children are packed into classrooms so congested that no learning can take place. Families and businesses watch bulldozers flatten their homes and their places of work in targeted inhuman demolitions. Goons and killer squads are in the streets and in the estates. The police who should be protecting the people are too busy serving as bodyguards to these criminal elements as they wage a war against the people of Kenya. From the Maa Nation, elders, leaders, and aspirants told me how they are watching as their land is being stolen by the president and his cronies. They are in pain because when their people have stood to protect what is theirs, many have been shot. Land theft and police violence rage across their counties. From the coast, elders and senior leaders told me of their challenges at the port of Mombasa, the key to the coastal economy. It has been mismanaged and used to disadvantage the local population. Ranches are being seized at gunpoint. Minerals are being carted away, but the local community see no returns. The drug epidemic is back. I spearheaded this fight as deputy president, but the gains have been lost. Drug dealers have been welcomed into the highest decision-making table, including sitting in the cabinet. This disease is devouring the youth at the coast. From northern Kenya, leaders, professionals, and concerned citizens told me of the absentee leaders who do nothing to combat the underdevelopment and entrenched poverty. Devolution, the promise that was supposed to bring government to their people, has instead seen resources disappear with little to show for it. The drought still comes, the water has still not come. For the western and western regions, the people reached out to me. They decry the sugar sector crisis, the reclassification of VAT increases cost of transporting sugar to the factories. The sale and leasing of sugar factories to private sector does not benefit only farmers, but the cabal that is hell-bent on pursuing selfish gains at the expense of 55 million Kenyans. For the North Rift, the people collectively spoke about the menace of banditry, cattle rustling, and the crop failure that has been experienced in the region. That warlords of violence are now eating in government, but the problems still remain. For the people of Mount Kenya region, I've heard your voice of unity. This will be done. We are one people and one nation. For the members of the fourth estate, they decried state harassment and curtailment of their freedoms that are enshrined in the Constitution. The media wants to be left free as espoused in our Constitution. This is only a sample of the discussions that I was having here in Wamunyoro. Just a small fraction. There's much more. The work before us, which is required to liberate this republic and save our people, is truly significant. Fellow countrymen, each day when the delegations left and Wamunyoro was quiet, I was left alone with the weight of their words. That weight was very heavy on my shoulders. I have said this before and I'll keep saying it so that Kenyan people know that I have not forgotten. I helped bring this administration to power. I rallied my people, my resources, my networks, my energy, and my ability to move people to put this government into office. So, when I hear how you are suffering today, I hear it as a man who must answer for his party needs. Some have looked at how hard I worked to fight the excesses of this government. Some say it is out of bitterness. I think they are forgetting that I spoke up when I was still in office. Recall the Gen Z protests and the massacre that followed. I stood with our children when I was in office. Some people still say that I'm speaking because I'm no longer in government. The naysayers are all wrong. So let me be clear once and for all about what drives me. I do what I do because I have a responsibility to do it. Where I come from, when your heart causes harm, even the harm you never intended, you cannot walk away. You do not make excuses. You apologize, and then you do whatever is within your power to make it right. That is exactly what I'm doing. I played a big role in bringing this government into power. It is hurting Kenyans. I'm playing an even bigger role to send it home come 10th August 2027 on the ballot. My countrymen, listening to the delegations who came here to see me, Kenyans have identified 3 objectives that have been instructed to pursue and accomplish on their behalf. Objective number 1, I have been told I must use everything in my power to keep this government accountable while using every legitimate means available that will call out, stop, and break any scheme that is engineered by this government to loot taxpayers' money or oppress the people of Kenya. This, I promise, I will do day and night. Objective number 2, the people have told me unanimously that for us to correct the evils that be there for this country, William Ruto must be one term and must be sent home. That message was clear. To achieve that, I have been told, and I'm persuaded, that the United Alternative Government must identify one presidential candidate to face William Ruto in the next general elections. Kenyans have made it very clear that we cannot gamble or take any risk that might bring William Ruto back. Kenyans are persuaded that we must do whatever it takes, including sacrificing our own personal political ambition, to identify one single presidential candidate. This is the only way to send this brutal regime home. One way and one round on 10th August 2027. I have been so persuaded. Objective number 3, Kenyans have told me that they have analyzed and decided that Rigathi Gachagua needs to be the preferred presidential candidate of the United Alternative Government 2027 general elections. Kenyans have instructed me to persuade my colleagues that I'm the best bet to guarantee a first round win, and that in their assessment I have the energy, I have the trust of the people, I have the leadership qualities, I have the experience, the infrastructure, the capacity, and the political network to deliver that victory. They have told me clearly that in the event that my colleagues persuade me otherwise, that I should not be the single presidential candidate. I should not in any way be the reason why the United Alternative Government should fail to have one single presidential candidate. In a nutshell, they have told me that in case I am not picked as the single presidential candidate, I and my supporters must back to a man, whoever is chosen to be the single presidential candidate. My countrymen, there comes a time in life when a patriot must make sacrifices for his nation. That time is now. As I leave Wamunyoro today, the road leads to only one place now. Forward to 2027. Forward to the liberation and restoration of our country's dignity, and forward to the Kenya you have been yearning and aspiring for. I'm ready to walk this road with you, and I stand ready to take on this fight. I assure you that the United Alternative Government is committed to ensuring fair, transparent, verifiable, credible, and democratic 2027 election, and the liberation of the Kenyan nation and the restoration of the dignity of the Kenyan people. May God bless Kenya. May God help us liberate our great nation. I thank you. Si iko sawa? Iko sawa? Imeingia vizuri? Hata Kasongo amesikia? Kadi zilimo? One single? Najua anasema ati Rigiji lazima akuwe ni yeye. Nani nawaambia? Yes, mimi nataka na Wakenya wananitaka. Lakini wakisema ni wache, ndio hii mtu aende nyumbani.